Please, human, help. My mom fell into your trap. The alien girl begged tearfully. Ethan leaned against the side of his starship, wiping sweat from his brow. The midday heat of the spaceport hung heavy, though it was nothing compared to the heat of a planetary atmosphere. The ship's hull gleamed in the artificial lights of the station, reflecting streaks of purple and blue from the nearby docking bays. He had been working on repairs for hours, tightening circuits and recalibrating sensors, when a sudden, high-pitched cry shattered the monotony. Please, human, help, Ethan stiffened. He turned slowly, expecting some frantic mechanic or a lost passenger, but what he saw made him blink in disbelief. A small alien girl, barely standing over 2 feet tall, was racing toward him. Her silvery skin shimmered faintly under the port lights, and her eyes glowed a soft violet, wide with fear. She stumbled slightly on her elongated legs, then scrambled forward with renewed determination. "My mom! She fell into your trap," she cried, her voice trembling. Her hands, delicate and almost translucent, reached out toward him. Ethan froze, unsure what to do. He had traveled across the sector, seen many alien species, and encountered his fair share of emergencies, but never had someone accused him outright like this. I don't know what trap you mean," he said carefully, keeping his hands raised in a non-threatening way. "Slow down, okay? Tell me what happened." The girl's eyes welled with tears. "Her name is Ambara. She was talking to them. They're dangerous. They wanted to trick her, and now she's trapped." She clutched at his jacket, tiny fingers cold but surprisingly strong. "You have to help me, human. You're the only one here." Ethan swallowed hard. He was alone on this part of the spaceport, and the small human outpost around him was almost deserted. The girl's fear was real, and he could see it in every quiver of her tiny body. Against his better judgment, his human sense of responsibility, the one that had saved him from many dangerous situations before, took over. "All right," he said finally, crouching down to her level. "Tell me everything you know. Who trapped her? Where are they?" The girl exhaled shakily, her breaths coming in small gasps. They're called the Kryn Syndicate. They trap people to take secrets. They want our homeworld. They want information my mom has." Her voice broke, and she buried her face in her hands for a moment, trembling. I didn't know where else to go. You're the only human I saw. Please help." Ethan's mind raced. The Kryn Syndicate. He had heard rumors of them, dangerous, organized, merciless. If they had captured a diplomat, it could escalate into an interstellar crisis. But what was a human traitor like him supposed to do against such a group? And yet, seeing the girl's desperation, he couldn't simply walk away. "Okay," he said, standing and extending his hand to her. "My name is Ethan. You—" "Leary," she whispered, finally looking up. Her wide eyes locked onto his, filled with both hope and fear. "Leary. Please, Ethan, my mom, she needs you." Ethan hesitated only for a moment. He reached out and took her small hand in his. She grasped it tightly, almost clinging to him as if he were her only lifeline in the entire galaxy. His heart pounded as he realized how fragile she was, and yet how determined. She wasn't going to leave his side until he promised to help. "All right, Leary," he said, taking a deep breath. "We're going to find your mom. But I need you to tell me everything you know about where they took her and how we get in." Leary nodded, her little face set with determination despite the tears still glistening in her eyes. She led him down the corridors of the spaceport, her small feet moving almost faster than expected. She explained in hurried, broken sentences about her mother's capture. Ambara had been on a diplomatic mission, negotiating for resources between her species and a nearby human colony. The Syndicate, seeing an opportunity, had orchestrated a trap under the guise of a trade agreement. Ambara had been lured into a derelict docking bay and captured while no one was watching. Ethan listened carefully, asking questions. Every detail mattered. He realized that brute force wouldn't work. They were dealing with a highly organized, technologically advanced group that had planned their actions meticulously. What he needed was cunning, improvisation, and creativity. Human creativity. Something the syndicate would least expect. As they moved through the narrow service corridors, Leary pointed out hidden cameras, patrol routines, and security checkpoints. Her knowledge of her mother's routines and the station's layout was surprisingly detailed for someone so young. Ethan felt a growing admiration for her resourcefulness. Humans were not the only intelligent beings in the galaxy, clearly, but in this moment, the combination of her knowledge and his ingenuity could make a real difference. "Ethan," she said suddenly, stopping and looking up at him. They don't just want secrets. They might hurt her if they think she knows too much. You have to be careful." Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. "I will. Don't worry, Leary. I promise I won't let anything happen to her." They reached a small docking bay where Ethan kept his ship. Its hull bore the scars of countless journeys and the engine hummed softly, ready for travel. Leary's eyes widened at the sight of it. You're going to take me to her." "Yes," he said simply. "We're going to rescue your mom, but it's not going to be easy. We'll have to be smart, we'll have to be quick, and we might have to trick them a little." Leary nodded solemnly, placing her small hand over his. "I can help," she said. I know their patterns. I know how to get inside without them seeing." Ethan smiled faintly. It was strange, trusting a small alien child to guide him through a dangerous rescue mission, but he also realized that sometimes the most unexpected allies were the most valuable. Hours passed as they prepared. Ethan checked his ship systems, loaded tools, and reviewed security schematics. Leary worked alongside him, her small fingers flying over control panels and holographic maps, highlighting weaknesses and showing blind spots. Finally, the time came. Ethan looked at Leary, who was standing with her small chest puffed out, trying to appear braver than she felt. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded. "I'm ready. Let's save my mom." They boarded the ship, engines roaring softly as they lifted off from the spaceport. Ethan navigated through asteroid belts and debris fields, following Leary's directions to avoid syndicate patrols. Every second was tense. The smallest miscalculation could alert the syndicate, and if that happened, Ambara might not survive. As they approached the coordinates Leary had provided, Ethan could see the massive structure of the syndicate's hidden station. It was old, scarred from countless battles, and heavily fortified. The docking ports were heavily guarded and lights scanned the outer walls continuously. "This is it," Leary whispered, her voice tight. "This is where they're holding her." Ethan took a deep breath. "All right, let's think. We can't storm in, they'll overwhelm us. We need a plan, a way to sneak in and reach her before they even realize we're here." Leary's eyes lit up with excitement mixed with fear. I have an idea," she said. "There's a maintenance tunnel on the side of the station. They never watch it. I can guide you through it. We'll get inside and we can reach her without being seen." Ethan studied the plan, nodding. "Good, that's exactly what we'll do. We'll be quick, quiet, and smart, just like we talked about." The ship approached the tunnel, barely visible against the station's massive structure. Ethan piloted with precision, following Leary's directions closely. The tension in the cabin was thick, even the hum of the engine seemed too loud. As they docked at the hidden entrance, Ethan turned to Leary. "Once we're inside, stay close. Don't let go. Understood?" Leary nodded. "I won't, I promise." Ethan smiled faintly, a mixture of reassurance and determination. "Then let's bring your mom home." And with that, the two unlikely allies stepped out of the ship and into the shadowed corridors of the Syndicate station, ready to face danger together. The human and the small alien girl, bound by trust, courage, and a shared mission, were about to embark on a journey that neither would ever forget. The adventure had begun, and already Ethan could feel it. Humans, underestimated by the galaxy, could change things in ways no one expected. The corridors of the Syndicate station were dark and narrow, filled with the low hum of machinery and the occasional clank of distant steps. Ethan followed Leary closely, her small form weaving expertly through the shadows. He could feel his heart pounding, not just from the tension but from the sheer weight of responsibility. A single mistake here could cost Embara her life, or worse, put Leary in danger. Leary led him to a junction where the corridor split into multiple maintenance shafts. "We go left here," she whispered, pointing with her tiny hand. "There's a hatch behind that panel. I can open it." Ethan nodded and crouched beside her as she reached out to the panel. With a few quick movements, her fingers slipped over the controls, bypassing the security lock. The panel slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a narrow maintenance tunnel. Ethan glanced down it, estimating the width and the height. It was tight, but he could manage. "Follow me carefully," Leary said, stepping in first. Ethan followed, crouched low, trying not to make a sound. The tunnel smelled faintly of ozone and metal. Pipes lined the walls and wires hung down in places, but Leary navigated with ease, pointing out obstacles before Ethan could even see them. "Be careful here," she warned. "This pipe carries power. If it's broken, alarms will go off." Ethan moved slowly, his human senses alert. Every creak, every shift of air, every distant footstep set his nerves on edge. But as he watched Leary, he realized that humans weren't the only clever beings in the galaxy. Her knowledge of her homeworld, combined with instinct and quick thinking, made her a guide unlike any he had ever encountered. Hours, or at least it felt like hours, passed as they maneuvered through the twisting tunnels. Leary's directions were precise, guiding Ethan past guards, security cameras, and even automated sentries that patrolled the station. Ethan couldn't help but admire her calmness under pressure. She moved with confidence that belied her small size, and he began to trust her completely. Finally, they reached a secondary chamber, a room filled with the low glow of security monitors. Leary pointed to one of the smaller screens. "That's her," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan leaned in, watching the feed. There, on a platform in the center of a reinforced chamber, stood Embara. She was unharmed for now, but the energy barriers surrounding her pulsed ominously. Guards moved in regular patterns around her, and the slightest misstep could alert them. Ethan studied the setup carefully. The barriers were high-tech, alien in design, but not impossible. He examined his tools, noting what could be repurposed. He had a small electromagnetic disruptor which could temporarily destabilize the barrier. With precise timing, they could slip through before it reactivated. "We can do this," Ethan said quietly, meeting Leary's eyes. "But we have to be perfect. No mistakes." Leary nodded. "I know. I can reach her from here. I can make the controls release the barrier for a few seconds." Ethan's respect for her grew even more. "Good, you do that. I'll cover the exit." Leary carefully slipped through a narrow gap near the control panel. Her small hands flew over the alien interface, bypassing security protocols that would have taken Ethan hours to decipher. Ethan stayed alert, listening to the distant sounds of the station, ready to act at a moment's notice. Finally, the barrier flickered and went down for a brief moment. Ethan and Leary acted instantly. Leary dashed forward, grabbing her mother's hand, while Ethan covered the corridor behind them, ready to intercept any guards. Embara's eyes widened in surprise and relief. "Leary." "Ethan, what are you?" "No time," Ethan whispered sharply. "We need to move." Embara nodded, understanding immediately. Leary led her through the narrow tunnel, Ethan close behind. The sound of alarms began to echo faintly, and Ethan knew they had triggered some failsafe. The syndicate would soon be on their trail, but for now, they had precious seconds to escape. They emerged into a larger maintenance area where the hum of engines and machinery was louder. Ethan quickly assessed the situation. There were two paths, one that led directly to a docking bay with heavy patrols, and a narrower route that twisted through the outer perimeter, less guarded but more complex. "Outer route," Ethan decided. It's longer, but we'll have cover and a better chance to avoid detection. Leary led the way, holding her mother's hand tightly. Ethan followed, scanning constantly for signs of movement. Every shadow, every flicker of light was a potential threat. Yet despite the tension, he noticed small things. The way Leary's eyes never wavered, the steady grip of Ambara's hand, the quiet determination in their movements. Humans had courage, yes, but so did the beings he was helping. As they navigated the outer corridors, the Syndicate's response grew more evident. Footsteps echoed closer, lights flickered, and automated drones whirred through the hallways, scanning for intruders. Ethan's pulse quickened. He knew he had to use every trick, every bit of human ingenuity to keep them safe. He spotted a maintenance panel above them, leading to a ventilation shaft. "Up there," he whispered. "We can use this to bypass the next patrol." Leary and Ambara climbed carefully, Ethan following last. The shaft was narrow but manageable. He thought about how humans were often underestimated, not as strong, not as fast, not as advanced technologically. But adaptability, creativity, and boldness often made the difference. He intended to prove that tonight. As they crawled through the ventilation, Leary spoke softly. They will notice soon. We have to hurry." Ethan nodded, keeping his movements deliberate but fast. He could hear the Syndicate's guards converging below, their voices sharp, orders shouted in a language he didn't understand. But he didn't panic. Panic never helped. Clear thinking did. Strategy did. Finally, they reached a vent that led to an access corridor near the docking bay. Ethan pushed it open carefully, peering out. Guards were moving methodically, checking corners and scanning with handheld devices. Timing was everything. "Wait for my signal," he whispered. "We go together." Moments later, he counted to 3 and motioned. Leary led her mother across the open corridor, Ethan close behind. Guards spotted movement, but the pair were quick, using the shadows and machinery as cover. One guard aimed, but Ethan, thinking fast, threw a small tool, hitting a panel that sparked and emitted a blinding flash. The guard stumbled back, giving them the critical seconds to move. They reached a side hatch that led to a small maintenance platform. Ethan pried it open and ushered Leary and Ambara through. They were close now, just one more section before reaching a secondary docking bay that might give them an escape route. The alarms grew louder, more urgent. Ethan's heart raced, but his mind was sharp. He knew that in moments like this, humans often succeeded where others failed, through ingenuity, improvisation, and courage. "Almost there," he whispered. "Just a little further." Leary clung to her mother, her small body trembling but moving steadily. Ambara, usually composed and diplomatic, now relied entirely on the human and her daughter. She trusted Ethan implicitly, even without fully understanding him. But trust, Ethan thought, was often the most powerful weapon. They reached the final corridor, but a squad of Syndicate guards blocked their way. Ethan cursed under his breath. There was no way to fight them head-on. They would be overwhelmed. Then an idea struck him. Humans often relied on clever distractions. He scanned the corridor and noticed a series of exposed pipes. With a quick flick, he hit a valve, releasing a burst of steam. The guards flinched, shielding their eyes, giving the 3 just enough time to dash through the corridor and into a side hatch. The hatch led to an elevator shaft that descended to a lower level, closer to the docking bay where Ethan's ship might reach them if they could move fast enough. The descent was slow, the silence tense, but at last they reached the bottom. Ethan peeked out. The docking bay was heavily guarded, but he noticed a supply craft docked at the far end, unguarded. "That's our chance," he whispered. "We can use that craft to reach the outer space lanes and make our escape." Leary's eyes sparkled with hope. Ambara's face relaxed slightly, relief washing over her features. For the first time since the kidnapping, there was a glimmer of safety. But Ethan knew the danger was far from over. He moved quickly, guiding them across the docking bay, avoiding patrols and ducking behind crates and machinery. The supply craft was within reach, but as they approached, a warning siren blared. The syndicate had realized the breach and were mobilizing forces. Ethan's jaw tightened. "No time to waste," he muttered. "We go now." He pushed the hatch open, and the three of them slipped inside the craft. Leary took the controls under Ethan's guidance, her fingers moving deftly over alien interfaces he barely understood. Embara sat beside them, holding her daughter, her eyes filled with gratitude and a new respect for humans. Ethan activated the engines, and the craft lifted off the docking bay, just as guards reached the exit. Laser beams streaked across the bay, but Ethan's human reflexes guided the craft through the narrow channels and into open space. For a moment, silence filled the cabin. They had escaped. Ethan looked at Leary and Embara. "We're not safe yet," he said, "but we're one step closer." Leary smiled faintly, her small hand gripping Ethan's. "Thank you, human. You're amazing." Ethan chuckled softly. "I'm just doing what I can. That's what humans do." And as the stars stretched before them, the human and the two aliens sailed into the unknown, bound by trust, courage, and a mission that would test every skill they had, and prove that humans, underestimated by the galaxy, could change the course of events in ways no one expected. The stars streaked past the cockpit windows as Ethan guided the small supply craft through the outer lanes of the system. The silence of space was deceptive. Danger was closing in fast. Leary's small hands gripped the controls, her violet eyes scanning the holographic displays, trying to match Ethan's instructions. Embara sat quietly, her breathing still tense, as if she expected the syndicate to appear at any moment. Ethan kept one hand on the control panel, the other resting lightly on Leary's shoulder. "We're not out of the woods yet," he said, his voice calm but firm. "The syndicate knows we escaped. They'll come after us with everything they have." Leary nodded. They have ships everywhere, faster than ours, more powerful. We'll have to be clever, human." Ethan smiled faintly. "Clever is what humans do best." He scanned the nearby asteroid belt, noting the jagged rocks and the gravitational anomalies. The field would be dangerous to navigate, but it could give them a strategic advantage. If the syndicate pursued directly, their heavier, less maneuverable ships would struggle. "Asteroids," he muttered. "We go through the asteroid belt. It's risky, but it's our best shot." Embara looked at him with concern. "Risky? Do you mean we could lose the ship?" Ethan shook his head. "We might, but the alternative is worse. If we stay in open space, they'll catch us easily. Trust me, this will work." Leary's small body shifted slightly as if she were preparing herself. "I can guide us," she said. "I know the paths. I've studied these rocks from the station sensors. Follow my lead." Ethan nodded, impressed. "All right, let's do it." The ship lurched as they entered the asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks that drifted lazily through space. Ethan's hands flew over the controls, adjusting speed, trajectory, and power distribution. Leary's voice was steady, calling out directions. "Left, no, up, careful, there's a spinning rock ahead." Ethan dodged just in time, the ship scraping a thin layer of ice off the hull. Sparks danced across the exterior, but the engines held. "Good call," he said. "Keep going." Below them, Embara clutched her daughter, her eyes wide. How can you do this? Even the syndicate pilots would struggle here." Ethan didn't answer immediately. He knew it wasn't skill alone. It was instinct, improvisation, and a willingness to take risks that others wouldn't. Humans often relied on creativity in unpredictable situations. He was proving that right now. Suddenly, red streaks appeared on the radar. Syndicate ships had found them. They were faster, heavily armed, and closing in. Ethan cursed under his breath. "They're coming. Brace yourself." Leary's eyes widened, but she didn't falter. "We can lose them if we use the asteroid field. Follow the narrow paths. They won't risk crashing." Ethan nodded and pushed the engines harder, weaving the ship through a labyrinth of rocks. The Syndicate ships hesitated, unwilling to take the same tight maneuvers. Laser blasts streaked past them, some striking asteroids and sending debris flying. The ship jolted as a fragment scraped the hull, but Ethan maintained control. Ambara gasped, You're amazing. How are you doing this?" Ethan shrugged slightly, focusing on the controls. "Humans, we find ways when it seems impossible. Keep holding on." Leary guided them through increasingly narrow gaps. "Almost there. This path leads to a gravity pocket. It will slow them down, but we have to be fast." Ethan adjusted the ship's thrusters, aligning with the subtle gravitational currents. The effect was immediate. The Syndicate ships struggled, their speed reduced as they tried to navigate the complex field. Ethan's ship, lighter and more maneuverable, darted through with precision. They emerged from the asteroid belt into open space near a neutral trading station. Ethan slowed the ship, scanning for patrols. "We're not safe yet," he said, "but we have a chance to get help." Leary leaned forward. There's a signal, a distress call. I can boost it, make it reach other stations." Ethan nodded. "Do it. We need allies. Humans aren't the only ones who fight for what's right." Leary worked quickly, her small fingers moving over the controls with surprising skill. The distress signal pulsed into the network, bouncing across communication satellites. Ethan watched as lights blinked in response. Help was coming, though he knew it wouldn't arrive immediately. The Syndicate ships weren't giving up. Ethan glanced at the radar. "They're regrouping. Looks like they're trying to flank us." Ambara tightened her grip on Leary. "What do we do now?" Ethan thought fast. Humans often relied on improvisation, using whatever tools were at hand. He spotted a nearby debris field from a destroyed freighter. "We'll use that," he said. "Cover ourselves in the debris. They won't see us clearly, and we can escape while they're distracted." Leary's eyes lit up. "I can control the sensors. I'll make it look like we're going one way while we go another." Ethan smiled. "Perfect. Let's do it." They veered toward the debris field. Leary hacked the ship's sensors to emit false signals, creating the illusion that they were heading toward the station. The Syndicate ships followed the false trail, firing blindly. Ethan guided the ship through the floating wreckage, ducking behind massive chunks of metal and broken engines. Laser fire ricocheted off asteroids, and small explosions lit up the darkness of space. Ambara's eyes were wide with awe. "I've never seen anything like this." "You're incredible, human," Ethan chuckled softly, though his focus never wavered. "We all have a little ingenuity inside us. Sometimes it just comes out when we need it most." The ruse worked perfectly. The Syndicate ships were lured into the debris, struggling to navigate the obstacles. Ethan and Leary's ship slipped past the danger zone, heading toward a safer sector. As they flew, Ethan took a moment to assess the situation. Ambara was safe for now, Leary was unharmed, and they had successfully evaded immediate capture. But the Syndicate was relentless. They would regroup, send more ships, and continue their pursuit. The rescue mission wasn't over. "Ethan," Leary said softly, they'll come back." "They won't give up," Ethan nodded. "I know, but we've already proven something important. Humans, even a single one, can make a difference. We can outthink, outmaneuver, and survive where others fail. And that's exactly what we're going to do." Ambara looked at him with a mixture of relief and admiration. "I underestimated humans. I thought you were reckless, unprepared, but you're clever, brave, and resourceful. You saved my daughter and me." Ethan smiled faintly. "I didn't do it alone. Leary helped too." "And you survived, which is important." Leary giggled softly, a sound that brought a rare lightness to the tense cabin. "We make a good team, human. You, me, and my mom. We're unstoppable." Ethan allowed himself a small smile. "Unstoppable, huh? We'll see about that." The craft sped toward a neutral sector, where Ethan hoped they could find temporary refuge. He knew the Syndicate wouldn't give up easily. They were cunning, organized, and ruthless. But he also knew humans had something no one else did: unpredictability. No plan was foolproof, no path completely safe, but human creativity, courage, and adaptability could turn even the most impossible situations in their favor. Hours passed as they navigated through asteroid clusters, avoided patrols, and monitored communications. Leary worked tirelessly, her small body showing signs of exhaustion but her determination unwavering. Mbara, too, remained alert, helping where she could, offering insights into the syndicate's strategies based on her experience as a diplomat. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the neutral sector. Ethan slowed the ship and scanned for safe ports. He spotted a small, unstaffed outpost that appeared abandoned but structurally sound. "That'll work," he said. "We'll land there, hide for a while, and plan our next move." As they descended toward the outpost, Ethan allowed himself a brief moment to relax. They had survived the first major threat, outsmarted the syndicate, and rescued Mbara. The human and alien team had proven that courage, ingenuity, and teamwork could overcome even overwhelming odds. Leary looked at him, eyes shining with admiration and trust. "Thank you, human. I don't know what we would have done without you." Ethan smiled. "We all did it together. Humans, aliens, we're better when we work as a team." Mbara reached out, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You've changed my view of humans. You've shown me bravery, strategy, and compassion in ways I never expected. My people will know about this. The galaxy will know." Ethan nodded quietly, feeling the weight of her words. He had not sought recognition, but he realized that action spoke louder than words. Humanity, often underestimated, had just proven its worth in the cold expanse of space. As the outpost loomed closer, Ethan prepared to land. He knew the syndicate would not give up, but for now, they had a moment of safety. They could regroup, plan, and continue their mission. And in that quiet moment, with stars stretching endlessly around them, Ethan understood something profound. Humans, with their courage, ingenuity, and relentless spirit, could shape the fate of the galaxy, not through sheer power, but through creativity, loyalty, and determination. The journey was far from over, but the first victory had been won. And together, Ethan, Leary, and Mbara, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Ethan guided the small ship toward the unstaffed outpost, its metal hull glinting faintly in the starlight. The structure appeared abandoned, quiet except for the hum of the docking stabilizers and the faint flicker of security lights. It offered a temporary haven, but Ethan knew better than to relax completely. The Kryn Syndicate would not let their captives go so easily. They were patient, ruthless, and determined to recover what had escaped. As they touched down on the platform, Leary let out a small sigh of relief, her shoulders sagging from the tension that had held her rigid for hours. We made it," she whispered, her voice trembling with fatigue. Mbara, ever composed even in crisis, gave a nod of approval. "For now," she said, "but the syndicate will not stop. They will come after us with more ships, more weapons, and more cunning than we have seen." Ethan turned to face them. "Then we prepare. Humans don't rely on luck alone. We plan, improvise, and adapt. That's how we survive and win." The outpost's interior was sparse. Cracked panels, dusty floors, and empty storage rooms made it clear that no one had occupied this place for years. Ethan set the ship to standby, making sure its engines were quiet, and then began inspecting the outpost's communication systems. If they were to survive the next attack, they needed allies and information. Leary helped where she could, her small fingers surprisingly nimble at repairing or bypassing alien technology. "I think I can boost a signal," she said, pointing to a faint, old transmitter. "It won't reach much, but maybe someone nearby will hear us." Ethan nodded. "Do it. Every bit of help counts." As Leary worked, Mbara studied the outpost structure. "We can use the ventilation system to create traps or hide our ship," she suggested. "I've seen designs like this before. There are choke points we can control." Ethan smiled. "Good thinking. Humans are often underestimated, but with strategy and knowledge, we can turn even a weak position into an advantage. Hours passed as they fortified their temporary haven. Ethan and Leary rigged the ventilation shafts, setting simple but effective traps to slow down or confuse intruders. Ambara assisted with sensor calibration, using her diplomatic training to anticipate how the syndicate would attack. Together, the three formed a cohesive team, blending human ingenuity with alien insight. As night fell across the sector, Ethan remained vigilant. The outpost's windows framed the stars like scattered diamonds, but the beauty was deceptive. Somewhere in the darkness, the syndicate prepared to strike. "I can hear them," Leary said suddenly, her small ears twitching as she listened. "Ships approaching. They're fast and they're coming in from multiple directions." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Get ready. This is where humans show what we're made of." The first Kryn ship appeared on the horizon, sleek and black, armed with lasers and missiles. Ethan maneuvered the ship behind a ridge of asteroids, using the natural cover to shield them. "Leary, activate the sensor decoys. Ambara, keep track of their movements. We'll need every advantage we can get." Leary's small hands flew over the controls, sending false signals to confuse the syndicate's sensors. Ethan piloted the ship with precision, weaving between asteroids and space debris. The Kryn ships fired, but most of their shots hit the rocks or the decoys, giving Ethan and the others precious seconds to escape. Ambara watched, amazed. "Humans, you are clever. I underestimated your instincts. Your ability to adapt is extraordinary." Ethan didn't reply immediately. He focused on the maneuvers, relying on quick thinking and instinct. Humans had survived because they could improvise in moments of chaos, and he intended to prove that once again. They managed to break through the asteroid belt, but the syndicate was relentless. More ships appeared, surrounding them from multiple angles. Ethan's mind raced. He couldn't outfight them all, but he could outthink them. "Leary, take us into the debris field near the old satellite cluster," he ordered. "We'll use it as cover and pick off ships one by one." Leary nodded, her confidence returning. "I know this field. It's perfect for ambushes. We can use the satellites to blind their sensors." Ethan guided the ship into the cluster, weaving between broken satellites and remnants of old space stations. The syndicate ships hesitated, unsure of the terrain. Laser fire streaked across the area, striking metal debris and sending sparks flying. Ethan used the chaos to his advantage, guiding the ship through tight gaps while Leary manipulated sensor signals to confuse the attackers. Ambara held her daughter tightly, watching the display screens. They have never faced anyone like this. A single human and a child, yet they are unstoppable. Ethan chuckled softly, though he kept his eyes on the approaching ships. "It's not just me, it's teamwork. Humans often succeed when others underestimate them. Unpredictability is our strength." One of the Kryn ships attempted a direct assault, cutting through the debris with lasers. Ethan anticipated the move, diving behind a massive satellite and letting the enemy overshoot. The syndicate ship collided with the wreckage, its hull damaged. Leary seized the opportunity, hacking nearby automated turrets to fire on the syndicate vessels. Ambara's eyes widened. "I've never seen such tactics. Humans, you think differently, act differently, and you survive." Ethan smiled faintly. "And that's why humans are special. We don't always have the strongest weapons or the fastest ships, but we think, adapt, and never give up." The battle raged across the debris field. Ethan and Leary's coordination was flawless. The syndicate ships, powerful and numerous, struggled to keep up with the human-led strategy. Every maneuver, every improvisation gave them an edge. Despite the chaos, Ethan remained calm, calculating, and relentless. Hours passed, and the syndicate began to retreat, unable to adapt to the unpredictable tactics of a human and a small alien girl. Ethan guided their ship toward a safer sector, where they could finally rest and plan their next move. As the stars stretched around them, Leary leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. We did it," she whispered. Ethan smiled. "We survived, but the syndicate will regroup. They're patient, ruthless, and they won't stop. We need allies, plans, and preparation for the next attack." Mbara nodded, her respect for the human growing. "You've shown me something incredible. Humans, you are clever, brave, and adaptable. You think in ways no one expects. You saved my daughter and me." Ethan shrugged modestly. "We all did this together. Humans, aliens, teamwork is stronger than any weapon." Leary smiled, her small face glowing with admiration. I think humans can change the galaxy." Ethan allowed himself a quiet smile. "We already are. One step at a time." They landed on a small, uncharted moon, a safe haven for now. Ethan powered down the ship and began assessing their supplies, planning for the next move. Leary and Mbara helped where they could, forming a tight-knit team. They knew the syndicate would return, but they also knew that together they could face anything. As night fell over the moon, Ethan looked up at the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of danger and uncertainty, but also full of possibilities. Humans, underestimated and often ignored, had the ability to survive, adapt, and thrive in ways no one could predict. Leary crawled next to him, her small hand in his. Do you think we'll be safe?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled. "Safe, maybe not completely. But we'll survive, and that's the first step. Humans don't give up. We fight, we adapt, and we find a way." Mbara joined them, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You've changed my view of humans. Your courage, intelligence, and determination, it is remarkable. You have not only saved lives but shown the galaxy the true strength of humanity." Ethan nodded quietly, feeling the weight of her words. He had not sought recognition, but the impact of their actions was clear. Humans, often underestimated, could make a difference even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. And as they rested on the moon under the endless expanse of stars, Ethan knew this was far from over. The syndicate would return, the dangers would grow, and the stakes would rise. But with courage, ingenuity, and teamwork, they had proven that humans could face the impossible and win. For now, though, there was a moment of peace. The small alien girl and her mother had survived. They had outwitted the syndicate, escaped danger, and strengthened a bond that would carry them through whatever challenges lay ahead. Ethan allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. Humans were often underestimated, dismissed as fragile or weak, but their adaptability, creativity, and courage were unmatched. Leary and Mbara had witnessed this firsthand, and the galaxy would soon learn it as well. The journey was far from over, but part 4 of their adventure had shown one undeniable truth. Humans, even alone or in small numbers, could change the course of events, outthink enemies, and survive against impossible odds. And together they were ready for whatever came next. The small moon lay quiet beneath the stars, a fragile sanctuary amidst the chaos of the galaxy. Ethan, Leary, and Mbara huddled inside the modest outpost, reviewing their options. Supplies were limited, but they had survived the asteroid ambush, outwitted the syndicate ships, and reached this temporary haven. Still, the Kryn syndicate would not rest. They would pursue relentlessly, and soon. Ethan paced the room, thinking fast. "We have to make a plan," he said. "Hiding forever isn't an option. They'll find us eventually. We need to hit them where it hurts and end this once and for all." Mbara nodded. "The syndicate relies on fear, manipulation, and control. If we can strike at their command center, we could cripple them. But it's heavily guarded, nearly impossible for a small ship like ours." Leary's eyes brightened with a mixture of determination and excitement. "We don't need to fight them head-on. We can use strategy, traps, diversions. We can make them think we're weak, then strike when they least expect it." Ethan smiled faintly. "Exactly. Humans thrive on unpredictability. If we can outthink them, even a small team can achieve what armies cannot. They spent hours preparing. Leary hacked into communications, broadcasting false distress signals across nearby sectors. Ethan modified the ship systems, enhancing its stealth capabilities and boosting their maneuverability. Ambara studied syndicate routines, mapping patrols, shifts, and weak points. Together, they formed a plan that relied not on brute force but cunning, speed, and precision. As the final pieces fell into place, Ethan addressed his companions. "Tonight, we end this. We rescue your homeworld secrets, secure your safety, and send a message to the Syndicate. Humans cannot be underestimated." Leary nodded solemnly. "Let's do it." Ambara placed her small hand over her daughter's. "And let's survive it." The stars stretched past the cockpit as they launched, leaving the moon behind. Ethan piloted with care, weaving between asteroids and debris fields to avoid detection. Leary monitored sensor readings, guiding them through patrol zones. Ambara kept track of their target, the Syndicate Command Station, a massive, imposing structure orbiting a barren planet. As they approached, Ethan's jaw tightened. The station was heavily armed, bristling with turrets and guarded by multiple ships in constant patrol. Any mistake could mean certain destruction, but humans had a strength the Syndicate had never accounted for: creativity under pressure. "We go in stages," Ethan whispered. "First, the decoy. Leary, launch the false signal now. Make it look like we're approaching from the opposite side." Leary's fingers flew over the controls. The ship's sensors emitted a flurry of fake readings, drawing the Syndicate patrols away. Ethan's small vessel slipped in through a narrow, unguarded channel. The command station loomed above them, dark, silent, but dangerous. Ambara's eyes widened. "It's bigger than I imagined. They think they are untouchable." Ethan shook his head. "No one is untouchable, not when humans plan." They entered the station's outer hull, navigating through maintenance tunnels and supply conduits. Leary guided them past security cameras, venting alarms, and automated drones. Every step was tense, every decision critical. One misstep could alert the Syndicate, but the human-alien team moved with precision, each relying on the other's strengths. Finally, they reached the central control hub. Ethan studied the room. Panels of blinking lights, holographic displays, and alien interfaces filled the space. Syndicate operators monitored sensors and communications, unaware of the small, agile intruders hiding in the shadows. Leary's eyes shone. "This is it. I can override the systems, disable the shields, and open the main vault, but it will take time." Ethan nodded. "Do it. Ambara, watch the entrances. If anyone comes, we need to act fast." Minutes stretched into eternity as Leary worked. Ethan's hands hovered over his toolset, ready to improvise any solution. Ambara kept a vigilant watch, her keen eyes catching subtle movements in the shadows. Then, a soft beep signaled success. The shields flickered and went down, giving them access to the Syndicate's vault. Inside, rows of data storage units and secure containers glimmered with faint lights. Leary's small hands moved quickly, extracting the critical files Ambara had been protecting, the secrets, negotiations, and information the Syndicate had tried to steal. Suddenly, a warning klaxon blared. Ethan's heart raced. "They've noticed the breach. We need to move now." Leary grabbed the last storage unit. "Almost done, just a few more seconds." Ethan assessed the room. Guards would arrive any moment. Ambara, cover the exits. Leary, finish up. As Syndicate personnel entered the hub, Ethan used his human ingenuity. He grabbed a small device from his tool kit and tossed it into the center of the room. It emitted a pulse that scrambled sensors and temporarily disabled electronic systems. The guard stumbled, confused, giving Leary the critical moment she needed to complete the data extraction. "Got it," Leary shouted, clutching the storage unit. Ethan led them through the maintenance tunnels, retracing their steps. The syndicate would be on high alert now, but they had the advantage of speed, knowledge, and unpredictability. As they neared the docking bay, Ethan's eyes scanned the area. One of the syndicate ships had returned early, preparing to intercept them. He smiled faintly. Time for human creativity. Leary, follow my lead. Ambara, hold on. Ethan maneuvered their ship through a narrow gap between structures, using the shadows and cover of debris. The pursuing ship fired, but Ethan anticipated every move, ducking, weaving, and accelerating with precision. Leary's hands flew over the controls, matching his movements perfectly. Ambara clutched her daughter, her face tense but trusting in their abilities. They emerged from the station into open space, pursued but not defeated. Ethan activated the ship's boosters, propelling them through asteroid fields and debris clusters. Laser fire streaked past, but humans had always thrived on adaptability. Ethan's quick thinking and bold maneuvers kept them safe. Finally, they reached a neutral sector, far from syndicate patrols. Ethan exhaled, feeling the weight of the mission's success. Leary and Ambara looked at him with relief and gratitude. The files were safe, the mother-daughter bond intact, and the syndicate's plans thwarted. Ambara turned to Ethan, her eyes filled with admiration. You have changed my view of humans. Your bravery, intelligence, and determination, it is extraordinary. You've not only saved us but struck a blow the syndicate will never forget. Ethan shook his head. I didn't do it alone. Leary guided us. You stayed calm and helped when it counted. This was a team effort. Humans, aliens, together, we are stronger than any enemy. Leary giggled softly, her small hand holding the storage unit tightly. We did it, we really did it. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. Yes, and this is proof that humans, underestimated as we are, can make a difference. Courage, ingenuity, and teamwork, that's what wins, not just strength or numbers. They set the ship to a quiet, hidden location in the neutral sector. Ambara's files were secure, and the data would soon reach the hands of those who needed it to protect their people. The Kryn Syndicate would regroup, but they had learned something important. Humans could outthink them, evade them, and survive where others might fail. As they looked out at the stars, Ethan spoke softly. The galaxy is vast, full of dangers and opportunities. Humans may be underestimated, but our greatest weapon is our mind, our courage, and our ability to adapt. Leary leaned against him, exhaustion finally overtaking her adrenaline. Do you think we'll ever be safe? Ethan smiled. Safe, maybe not completely, but we'll survive. That's what humans do. We face the impossible, adapt, and find a way. Together, we've proven that. Ambara placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. You've shown my daughter and me that courage isn't measured by size, power, or species. It's measured by determination, creativity, and the will to protect what matters most. Humans, you are remarkable. Ethan nodded quietly, feeling the weight of her words. Humans had survived countless challenges, not always because they were the strongest, but because they thought differently, adapted, and refused to give up. Tonight, they had proven it again. The small team settled in the hidden outpost, resting but alert. Leary curled against her mother, her trust in Ethan absolute. Ambara, normally composed, allowed herself a rare moment of vulnerability, grateful for the human who had risked everything to save them. Ethan stared at the stars, contemplating the journey they had undertaken. Humans were often underestimated, dismissed as fragile or weak, but their ingenuity and courage had turned the tide against the syndicate. And the galaxy, vast and unpredictable, would soon learn that humans were forces to be reckoned with, not through brute power, but through intelligence, determination, and teamwork. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, and new adventures. But for now, they had survived. They had triumphed against overwhelming odds. They had proven that even a single human, working with allies, could change the course of events in ways no one could predict. And together, Ethan, Leary, and Ambara, They would continue to face the unknown, ready to adapt, fight, and survive. The galaxy might underestimate humans, but their legacy of courage and ingenuity had begun, and nothing could stop it.